Hello and welcome to our podcast, Everyday People, Extraordinary Performance. My name is Natalie Byrne.
And I'm Abigail Wilson. And we are delighted to welcome Alison Cassidy to the Everyday People Extraordinary Performance podcast. Alison is the founder of AHC Learning Limited, specialising in coaching, recruitment, and both face-to-face and virtual learning. With experience at organisations like Diageo, Barclays Wealth, and even Disney, she brings a unique mix of corporate insight and creative flair. As a Luminous Spark practitioner, NLP master coach, and an expert in virtual learning long before it was trendy, Alison combines energy, humour, and a deep connection to people in everything she does. So, welcome to the podcast, Alison. Delighted to have you. Could you... It's quite the intro, isn't it?
It really is. I don't know how I recognise that person. But here we are. Too modest.
In relation to that, could you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you come to be here and just, a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I left school with a master plan of becoming a maths teacher. I wanted to make maths interesting for teenagers. And very quickly into my degree, I decided that I thought that would be quite a big challenge in life. And after a little bit of a car accident on the Edinburgh bypass, I didn't go back to uni, and my mum told me that I had to go and get a proper job because I was working in a children's play area and dressing up as a clown. So I went and did what a lot of people do, just applied out for lots of different organisations. And I joined a bank. And a few months later, I found myself out the front of the branch, dressed up as a squirrel, and thought I've really not came that far in the grown-up job situation. But what I did realise, again, another couple of months on from that, when I went on my second training course, which is all about interacting with people and sales and all of those things. And I just remember having a moment where I sat in Edinburgh and thought, I want her job. That's what I want to do in life. And bearing in mind, this would have been in 98, 99. So 25 years later, I realised how old I am, but I'm still doing it. And that really gave me the driver, working within banking, to decide to work hard towards that role and to get some focus as well. So a couple of years later, moved into working in training and development and engaging people through a massive period of change that was happening. And so from there, every role I've moved on to, I've tried to make sure it's a role where I can learn something, both in the work that I'm doing, but also in the organisation that I work with. So 10 years almost in financial services, then took me into working for Diageo. So drinks manufacturing, although didn't really get to manufacture much, but did get the opportunity to work with one of my best leaders, who really taught me how to do learning and development and facilitation rather than just old school training of I've got a flip chart and I've got some slides and this is what you're going to focus on as well, which was great. And then after that, I just sort of went on a bit of a journey. Oh, that sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But it was where my job relocated into London. So I stepped back into financial services, went to do some personality profiling, which built on my experience with Myers-Briggs into insights. And as you mentioned, I also now do Lumina, as well as a few others that happen as well. And during that time, I learned a huge amount about myself and what was really important. I made the decision in 2012 that actually I wanted to get back to doing a lot of training, a lot of interacting with people. I suddenly realised that no matter how much I claim I don't, I really do like working with people. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy the sense of being able to make a difference. And many years ago, somebody once said to me, you just come to work to have fun. And I have to admit that's part of it. I also quite enjoy getting paid. But at the core, and what drives both of them, is that I come to work to make a difference. Whether that is helping people, whether that is allowing them to understand a little bit more about themselves and each other, whether that is looking at how they can work better as a team, any of those things. Absolutely love it. And I'm lucky. I love my job.
Yeah, that's superb. I mean, there's so many different ways of engaging your audience and especially in workshops and trainings. And I know that there's something fairly new on the market that you've been exploring, a new methodology. And that's really something we really want to talk about today. And it's called Lego Serious Play. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I've been lucky enough to experience it. And I've really, and you're the one who's been facilitating it. It was absolutely brilliant. But I want to hear from you. How did you come across this methodology? And just tell us a bit more. What is it actually?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the heart, I'm actually just a massive Lego geek. I love Lego, and I really find building Legos probably one of the places where I'm most mindful and present. And I'm not very good at switching off. So that really is what drove me into Lego and the joys of it. Although my mum says I didn't like it as a child, but can confirm as a grown up, I definitely did. And the sense of accomplishment, because I don't think I'm particularly creative, but I can still build things, which is quite impressive in my opinion. And as I look around my house, where I've got a little Steamboat Willie, you'll spot that a lot of them are Disney referenced, or Magic Kingdom Castle. Oh, I made that. Right down to the really simple ones. I think behind me I've got a Chip and a Dale, all of those things. So Lego for me is just really relaxing and good fun. And as you guys know, because you know me really well, I like to make my workshops a little bit different. A lot of people come into training and development and coaching almost with a bit of a fear or a little bit of an eye roll of, oh, do I really want to be here? And I think that if we can make it enjoyable, I always say that if you're laughing, you're probably learning something from one another as well, because you're relaxed and your barriers are down. So as I was looking at, right, what was going to be the next thing that I took on board? We've talked about the personality profiling. Been fortunate that I've been out to Florida and trained with Disney. But right, what's going to be next? And I literally stumbled across Lego Serious Play. And I thought, oh, this is a good excuse to buy some Lego. Not going to lie, that was the driver behind it. And the more and more I explored it, the more I thought, oh, this feels like something that would really fit in, probably with my audience. Because I often work with people who aren't used to sitting in training room or at a desk for any length of time. They're used to moving and being involved in things. So Lego Serious Play in 2010 actually became open source. So I'd spent a good number of years buying books, looking into it, observing things. And then this year I decided, I get all of that, but I want to get a little bit more confidence in my ability so I can take it into work. So I went away and did some training. As I said, it's open source, so you don't need to. But for my own sanity, I did. And it really unlocked something in me that went, I really like Lego Serious Play, and I can look at how I could use it and use it a little bit different as well. So at the heart of Lego Serious Play, we talk a lot about let your hands do the thinking. So the minute we put people into a training room or into a coaching situation, and we ask them to start writing things down or gather by a flip chart, and that has its place. I still do that. One of the other things, though, that it can create is a little bit of a barrier for people, because anytime somebody picks up a pen, you'll always hear, I don't write very well, my spelling's terrible. So again, we're starting to put doubts into our own minds. Whereas with Lego, 99% of people, that are a small population, that are not a massive lover of it, and that's okay. But 99% of people, the minute we give them some bricks and we ask them to build something that represents how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what a tool or a technique or a value, and for organisations that have looked at values with, what that represents, and build it in bricks for them, they start off, and often we start off a little bit slow. Because then, again, how does mine compare to other people's? And then we get into it. And one of the best things that can happen is when I have, and I always encourage it, when I have people who then go, can can I either take that home, people are losing my bricks, or can I take a photo of that and they send it to their kids or their partners or whoever it might be? Because again, they get the same sense of pride that I do when I build Chip and Dale. And what the key thing for me is the barriers of I don't write well, I have to be very much in my right brain thinking have all gone. And with the bricks, they tap it to their left brain and they become more relaxed with that. So again, it brings the giggles and the laughter into the training room, which I love. But also it gives them a little bit of freedom to be able to then go and have an experimental experience. But actually, they learn loads while they're doing it. But it's not from me. I don't stand in front and tell them what they're doing. It's all from them. And that is where you get the biggest shift.
Because it's quite a creative tool.
Yeah.
And you might think it's a bit sort of abstract concepts as well, almost. Is there any kind of, you said sometimes people takes a bit longer, but do you find like everyone is actually taking part in it and actually embracing it at the end? If they say, I'm not a creative person or I don't want to, I'm not really into this. So I think, have you found any kind of barriers there or how would you break those barriers down?
So one of the things, that's such a good question, because one of the things that we do to try and break that down really quickly is we do lots of little, what are deemed as just warm-up activities. But what they do is they give people confidence in their ability to build. So we can do little activities using introductory sets. I've always got a duck of some description. Now, mine's is a Duplo duck because I want it to be really obvious when it's in my study to remind me. But in a lot of our Lego Serious Play events, we start just by building a duck. So we give people 6 bricks and ask them to build a duck. That isn't too complicated and that people don't play too much. They've only got 6 bricks to choose from. And then they build their duck. And then what they realise is that their duck looks different from somebody else's duck. So again, we've then got a little bit exploring around what made us build it that way, why does it look the way it does, etc. But that alone, the duck activity gives people that almost permission to unlock themselves, to be able to feel like they can use Lego Serious Play. I sometimes wonder if I was to rename the model, I don't think I'd use the word play, because I think in a lot of organisations, they think, oh, you want me to play? Oh, no, I'm not playing. And actually, it's not. It's about building and using the tools to get your point across, but without necessarily having to always verbalise it or write it down as well. So activities like, I'm going to put the duck away, because if not, I'll twiddle with the duck all day. So if we use the duck or an version of the duck, it gives people a little bit of control, a little bit of confidence, and then they get into it. It's amazing how one activity in, and people are all in at that point in time. But if I ever do, and I may come across somebody who says this isn't for me, that's fine. What we can do is maybe they can work in pairs and give guidance to somebody else or do some observations, etc. So there's a place for everybody in a Lego workshop, which I will.
Oh, that's really interesting as well. That there are different ways of engaging people and trying to get them on board almost. And from a personal experience, I think it was a bit of a challenge initially how can I, and I'm a sort of creative person, but I found myself initially not being creative. But then a few minutes in, I'm like, actually, no, I've got this. And it was absolutely fascinating. From that as well, sort of the biggest challenge I can imagine is introducing Lego Play to kind of teams or organizations where there's a bit of the skepticism there. How do you feel like you could overcome that from like even the onset of that kind of discussion? Like, how would you be able to introduce that to a client that might be skeptical at first?
Absolutely. So there's quite a lot of research out there, and there isn't a huge amount on Lego Serious Play itself because it's still fairly new into market. Even when I was on holiday in May, I was standing in a queue to meet a Disney character. Don't judge me. And the guy behind me, we ended up chatting. He worked at Barclays. We didn't ever work together. We were in different parts of the business. And he'd just been trained in Lego Serious Play. So we are seeing it appear in lots of different organisations. But when we look at the research that's out there, it talks about how much more people learn and more importantly, how they can then embed that learning as a result of doing some kind of practical activities and workshops. We know that, again, if people go into training events or facilitated workshops, and I talk at them 3 months down the line, they remember about 10% of it, which is not a good return on investment for anybody. And if I'm honest, it's not just the money. I actually find that quite soul destroying, that I've invested all this time and energy, as have they, and nothing's happened. Again, the stats tell us that if they practically get involved and if they have the opportunity to be more hands-on, so a little bit of tell, a little bit of show, a little bit of experience, what we then see is 3 months down the line, they're retaining around about 65%, depends on who you talk to. Some people have nudged that up a little bit more. So already we're getting a 6-fold return on investment. So in theory, that should be, in my opinion, a great enough reason for an organisation where, do you know what, let's try it, let's see what happens. The other part for me, though, is when you come back to research. There have been lots of research done around practical play. We see children in schools, particularly primary schools, really changing from the days when I was there, that you went at and you sat at a desk and the teacher talked at you, to so much more learning. There's Montessori nurseries now. A lot of primary schools are based on that as well. Lego's just an extension of that. So, and actually, at the heart of us are all children, are all people who want to come along, be a little bit inquisitive, sometimes be challenged by what's going on, and also to challenge us for us to prove why we're there and what we can deliver. And I get that in a few different workshops. But with that, in an organisation, say, I'm not sure. For me, it's all about those results. It's all about the research, all about the qualitative and quantitative feedback that we get, and the then retesting things 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, what's actually changed as a result. And that just builds a business case that says, you've got nothing to lose, let's give this a try. It'll make a difference. Trust me, I'm a Lego serious play facilitator.
I don't know. I mean, I find that, again, from personal experience of sitting in on the workshop, I found that initially, I guess there was that skepticism because I'm probably part of the 1%. I didn't play with Lego a huge amount. It's not something that I found comfortable initially. It was that, oh, but I don't know how to make something, or, you know, it was very prescriptive in my head. And then immediately, once we kind of got over that hurdle, which was very quickly removed, if I'm honest, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I was problem solving differently. I was thinking outside the box. And I think there was so many things that I took from the session in terms of how our team worked. And it just showed a whole different side that I hadn't explored before. But I guess with the out of the box thinking, have you ever come across anything in one of these workshops that has been so off the wall it's changed the tone of the session, or have you come across anything absolutely wild in the sessions?
So I think that it has. Oh, it's a really good question. So, got my thinking cap on, or my thinking Lego hat, which might be more appropriate. The one that really stands out for me was a team that I had been asked to go in and do some work with around their vision and values, which is often where we see Lego going in because it feels a bit more strategic. But actually, we can use it for anything. Literally, last week, I was working with a university and looking at emotional intelligence, and we were using Lego. So you can use it for anything. But strategy is often where we see people taking a little bit of a risk and trusting the process with that. And one of the things that happened in that room was one of their key values was collaboration. Most organisations have collaboration. And what we found in that event, or what I observed, was that people were very good at building their own Lego model and exceptionally good at giving feedback on other people and being really supportive. But then when I asked them to start combining and working together on it, there was this little, it wasn't even little, it was like I'd chucked a grenade in. All of a sudden, people became quite precious about what they've built. They were very attached to it. And you could see them thinking, oh, don't mind working with that person because I know that they're not going to destroy what I've created. I don't want to work with that person. And all of a sudden it was like, oh yes, so we're talking about collaboration and we've got all the words and phrases up and on the wall, but we're not collaborating, not at the heart and not consistently across the organisation. I was like, I'll work with who I want to work with, but don't make me go with somebody that I don't particularly want to as well. And you've got to call that out. That's my job. I'm not there just for fun. My job is to call that out when it happens in the room. Say, well, let's just stop. Let's just take a minute. I'm observing. Let me throw out some observations. Let's talk about them. And it was amazing how within probably an hour of that activity starting to it finishing, that people were interacting with other people that they don't normally talk to, because we went into a coffee break because it'd been quite draining for everybody. We all needed a little bit of a break after it. So we went into a coffee break and you then saw people talking to others that they hadn't been talking to the rest of the time that we were together. I was like, oh, okay, we're starting to see something nudge forward. Again, we're not going to get a massive shift in that moment because people then need to reflect on what's happened and then think, how do I use this new knowledge and apply it into my work to be more successful. So, yeah.
So how do you tailor the series play sessions to like different like team goals, such as like it's maybe for strategy development, or is it more for improving team dynamics? Like how do you tailor the sessions towards these kind of goals?
The key part for me is that initial, what used to be called training needs analysis, and for me now it's proper consultancy, and it's trying to find out what is their focus, but more importantly, what do they want to feel and look different as a result of that. So yeah, we can talk about what they want covered, and that's great, but are we ticking the box or are we actually going to make a difference? And when we talk about what the outcome looks like, we start to get into how we might make a difference. So my conversation is then about, right, where are things at? Where do we want them to get to? What's the difference that we want to have? And then I always go away because I'm a big reflector. As somebody who does a lot of talking and thinking on their feet, I need a little bit of downtime. I need a little bit of headspace. So I'll always go away and come up with a plan. And often then it's different activities that we do. So sometimes we'll do some individual activities. Sometimes we'll do some team stuff. It is about saying or recognising what do we want them to build and why. So again, it's not just the building, it's the what's behind it, what's driving that. So if I ask you to build a Lego piece that is representative of communication in your organisation, because that's something that most organisations need to work on. Communication is a real challenge. We're never taught it. That's partly why. It's then thinking, well, actually, what then? We've got the activity, but what's the outcome? Where do we want it to go? So the key thing for me is actually about the debrief at the end. So as I went through Lego Series Play, 2 massive learnings. So one was less is more, because we are so tempted to throw everything in and try and do all of it at once because we've got people in a room or we're doing it virtually, because you can still do Lego Series Plays and group virtually. But actually, if you try and cram too much in, we almost lose the value of it. And the other thing is the quality and the time for the debriefs. They take longer than you ever think they will because people are really opening up at that point and also looking at how they can take this and, as I said, apply it into work in the future as well. So it's probably always the longest debrief sessions that I run of any event, but that's why the embedding of it becomes even more impactful because I've really thought about it as we've debriefed it. So it's literally about going, where are we at? What topics are we looking at? More importantly, what's the goal? What's the outcome? Me get a little bit of soak time thinking, right, what's the best activity that I can come up with? Because there's so many out there. I've got umpteen, technical term, Lego books of ideas and suggestions, and I sign up to loads of different groups and whatnot. So there's loads of things out there. It's a soak time to make sure we pick the right one for the right activity, for the right outcome as well.
I think that's really important. And I think, as you're saying about the debrief, but I also think, as you were saying, from you being the facilitator, but also the observer, because when we went through it, I found that quite often we were right in amongst whatever we were trying to create. But actually, it would be sometimes at the end of that activity, you'd be standing there going, did you notice this? Did you see? And it recontextualizes it and takes it out of that play space and moves it actually back into the workspace. And I think that was I found that hugely useful. And I guess you've touched on it there in terms of you've got umpteen different exercises. Can you share with us your favorite one without giving away too much of your toolbox? And why is it your favorite?
So actually, I think my favourite one, so I've spoken about the duck already, so we'll leave the duck to the side. I think my favourite welcome activity is the one that I actually did with you guys, because it gives people a real clear steer. So again, we're not asking to be super creative. We're not making people uncomfortable. All I do is say to you, I want you to build me a Lego minifigure that represents how you're turning up today. So, and I think I was always saying to you guys, it was on the flip chart, you need a hat or hair. You need a head, always helpful, a body, legs, and an accessory as well. And so we've got a little bit of structure there. So again, I'm only asking you to consider 5 pieces. But what it does is it gets people talking as they look at the little different Lego heads, because the amount of different emotions that those heads have is amazing, and the different shading of those heads as well, from those who are like me, who are exceptionally pale, all the way through to those that have got the big sunglasses on and a beard, and they're just so diverse, and I love that.
And also, actually, what I found as well, so diverse in terms of, really looking at even neurodiversity, disabilities, everything hidden and unhidden. It was fascinating how many pieces there are, and how much actually Lego has been thinking about this as well to make it inclusive.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good.
Absolutely. The diversity of the Lego pieces is amazing. And actually, some of those, I don't even get direct from Lego. I go to other places so that I can get lots of different skin colours, because that's really important to me. So that you guys know my little wheelchairs, one of my favourite ones. We've got people or legs with prosthetics on them. All of those things are really important. So it is as diverse, but even more importantly, as inclusive as it possibly can. And it's amazing how when people look at their accessory as well, that's when they might share a hidden disability or something that they use to help them with it that you had no idea about as well. So those little pieces make such a difference. And it's not just representing you, it's representing how you turn up today. So I once looked at one that somebody had made, and it had purple hair. And I remember thinking, okay, are you taking the mickey out of me? But no, that was how they felt on that day as well. And it was only through the debrief could we then understand that. And I was like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. Always thought the purple hair one was mine, but I'm happy to share as well. So it's how people see the pieces, the interaction they have, and then how they then describe it. So it's one of my favourite, but it's about the most simple activity I think I do. But simple's often what works.
But also, I think it's fascinating how there's so many different activities, as you say, and it's having to really deep dive into an organization or the team that you are facilitating. How can you make certain maybe challenges that they have, make them come out to light with Lego Play? And I think that's something that I found fascinating, because I just never thought about a certain challenge within the organization or the team that actually Lego would get us talking about this and seeing the hidden challenge that I didn't know was there. It brought it to light, and we actually openly talked about it and almost solved it there and then in that sense as well. And things have been happening after that because of that Lego Play activity that we did.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how you can turn it so much into a workplace scenario.
Yeah.
Any of those activities.
Absolutely. And also it can often demonstrate the resourcefulness of people. So we regularly talk about, it brings out the challenges and whatnot, and it absolutely does. But one of the things that I loved, and this happened with you guys, and it was a massive learning for me, so it doesn't happen anymore, was we were building a bridge to get over a dummy river. and I had left the big plates out that we were building on. And I don't know if one team came up with the idea and the other team copied, or if both teams were just really resourceful. But either way, it was resourcefulness of collaboration. But all of a sudden, you use those base plates as the base of your bridge. Those base plates now disappear before the activity happens. Well, it's amazing how I had looked at it, I'd run that activity before, never seen that happen. And then all of a sudden, I get a different group who look at it differently. And actually, we see that collaboration, we see the resourcefulness, and I learn from it as well and think, yeah, we'll be taking those pieces out next time. So it's all learning.
I find it absolutely fascinating. We've been so lucky to experience it. I think any organisation will benefit from this. It's been really, really revealing and fun at the same time. It definitely got you talking. It got you engaged with your colleagues in a completely different way, because you would never be in any of that kind of scenario ever again. And so it was really refreshing. I think it was refreshing and still got so much out of it.
Yeah.
I think it was the diversity of thought as well, in terms of like, there was some times where you were maybe explaining what you had created to someone and how I view it and how someone else views it was completely different. So even that, it's celebrating those different ways of thinking and, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. And it just gets you thinking in a different way. So I think it was massively, massively useful for us. So yeah, we loved it.
Well, the one thing that I loved when I was working with you guys is that we had lots of you in the room together. And then we had one person who had joined virtually. Now, most of the time, if we were doing like chalk and talk and flip chart events, that person virtually would get lost because everybody would be gathered around their own individual flip charts, would take the laptop with the person. But in actual fact, they would just be almost forgotten about because we're interacting with the people that we can see, the people in the room. And that didn't happen. And actually, when I looked at the feedback that we got, and that person spoke about how involved they felt they were, because I had an initial moment, if I'd known they were going to be away, I'd have sent them a Lego set down so that they could get involved. But instead, they completely embraced that, as did those that they then were partnered with or group activities. And I reckon that they were involved like positively in at least 90% of our interactions as well, which is huge. Because if not, and I've run events where you have one person who's virtual and everyone else is in the room, and I just think that the virtual person gets left behind. It's hard to keep them involved. And with Lego, after a quick, right, how are we going to make this work? Created an idea and it worked. And the person said that they'd thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, more importantly, got value out of it as well.
We definitely are looking for another session, I think, on this.
Absolutely.
So. But I think for anyone, it's just really recommend it to look at that. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the podcast, we want to now try and ask some more different questions for everyone coming onto this podcast. It's 3 questions and just some quick answers to them would be really interesting. First one, what does extraordinary performance mean to you?
Oh, I'm not sure I do quick answers, but my gut instinct with that is people who are able to come to work and perform at their best every single day. Equally, that's the same in a volunteering place, but actually in their home life as well. That's extraordinary. It's giving of your all and feeling safe and confident enough to do that.
Love that one. Right. So, second one, Alison, what does a high-performing team look like to you?
Oh, well, we could go into all of the research that's been done and like Bruce Tuckman's model and all of those fun things. But actually, for me, a high-performing team, and I described that just last week, as a team where everyone is working together. We literally have got each other's backs and can challenge each other. But more importantly, it's a team that other people on the outside look in and think, I want to be part of that. Because they are successful and other people want to get in on that success as well.
Love that. Last one. What does good leadership look like to you?
Oh boy. Again, I had this conversation last week and said if often you can think of what good leadership looks like, think of what poor leadership looks like and flip it. So I believe in my life, I've had two amazing leaders, both females, interestingly, and that often I much prefer working with men, so I find that quite interesting. And good leadership for me, if I think about the first one, a lady called Isabel, she used to say, feel free to try anything you want in your training room as long as nobody dies. Now that worked well because we were in a bank. In a high hazard industry, it's a little bit different. If we're down with explosions, we need to think about that one a little bit clearer. But again, her view was, or what she gave was, she trusted me enough to go away and try to do things differently. And I almost wish you could see the me now rather than the me at 20, early 20s. And the other example of good leadership is when I was in Diageo, I was fortunate to be involved in interviewing a lot of the senior finance directors. And one is now, or many of them have now made it into chief financial officers. But one was a lady called Anna. And she said that her best leader was her harshest critic privately, but her biggest supporter publicly. And that has stayed with me all of these years, that it's a boss who will push you, who will challenge you to be the best that you can be. But outside, you know that they are supporting and championing you and almost being your cheerleader as well. So totally stolen from other people. But that's what leadership is for me, good leadership.
Fascinating. Alison, it's been an absolute delight to talk to you. Yeah, as we said, we definitely up for another session. So anytime, we'll be there.
We'll do it in the new year.
Well, thank you so much, Alison. And have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. Have